I hate this so much. I hate it already. It's so bad. I'm sucking right now. I'm sucking it so bad.
too.
Can we just have wine first? Like, fuck the lasagna. Like, let's have wine first. Okay. Because this is gonna make everything so much easier and smoother, I think. Cheers. So we're having Barbera, which will taste better once you have a bite of lasagna.
It tastes good right now.
Okay, fabulous. Well, there's a lot of acidity in it, right? To balance out all of the cheesy goodness. So I feel like it's important to also eat whilst consuming. Anyway, okay, so lasagna, the whole point of that was lasagna. It was like the food of the ancient Romans and Greeks, and apparently the word lasanum, which I am likely not pronouncing correctly, actually referred to a cooking pot, like inanimate cooking pot, not the dish itself. So I guess we kind of lucked out because, it could have been named pot food, which I'm sure for some people it is pot food.
Interesting.
But
Pot, like pot?
like pot food. Because let's be honest, like if somebody's got the munchies, and I'm not a partaker, it's not my thing, but if somebody's got the munchies, lasagna has to be on the top of the list.
I think.
But maybe not, because again, I don't partake, so I don't know these things.
If you're talking about munchies, I think munchies are more like just snacking really hard. This is a meal. So you have to be like not high and prepare it and then go to it and eat it cold in the fridge, I'd assume. After.
Okay.
Like that's kind of like I would assume.
Fair enough. This will take
Haven't been there, but
no, this is taking a total left turn. But different regions in Italy also have their own unique takes on lasagna. So, like for example, Emilia Romana, which I'm going to go ahead and pronounce all of these as if I know what I'm talking about, because this is either, I feel like all of my friends, this is either their favorite thing about me is that I like to pronounce any word in another language as if I speak that language, or at least try, or it's like their absolute least favorite thing about me and it drives them up a fucking wall. So you can decide later. But anyway, Emilia Romana, known for the classic lasagna alla bolognese, which includes layers of fresh pasta, bechamel sauce, and ragu made with a mixture of pork and beef. So this is what I made us is going to be closest to that. Only there's a bit of a redneck caveat, and we'll get to that in a minute. Then, like in Naples, it typically has ricotta cheese and meatballs and sausage, and interestingly, hard-boiled eggs and tomato sauce, which sounds kind of fascinating. Or like in Tuscany, it often has like a simpler vegetable-based lasagna. And then, of course, we've got like the good old-fashioned American lasagna, which is just like a shitload of cheese, basically. I think is like, that's what designates it as American lasagna. So like if the entire dairy aisle is not on top of your lasagna, you aren't there yet.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. So now I'm going to be honest about this lasagna that I made us, because I kind of pulled a how bad could it be experiment here for us. And don't you love when somebody says that before?
Can't wait to eat this.
Yeah. Okay. No, it's really not bad. Like I loosely followed a recipe from one of, like I consulted the online gods and asked for really good recipes for lasagna, because what I wanted to make you was my dad's lasagna, because it's amazing. But I could not locate the recipe, and it was too late last night to call him. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do my own thing. So I consulted a recipe online, and it called for, and I'm sure Pioneer Woman is a fantastic human and chef, but it called for cottage cheese instead of ricotta. Now, this is a judgment-free zone, right? I don't know about this because I grew up on lasagna with ricotta, like traditional Italian cheese. But like, I'm like, all right, Michelangelo is probably rolling over in his grave, and possibly every like Italian nonna who has ever lived. But I know a lot of people who grow up on it with cottage cheese versus ricotta because it's cheaper, it's budget friendly. And like, I'm all about being budget friendly sometimes. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna try this cottage cheese thing. So instead of ricotta, sorry, Italians and authentic
Wait,
cities.
this is cottage cheese.
There's cottage cheese in it. Now there's also mozzarella, right? But like there's cottage cheese in this. It's like rather than so I subbed in cottage cheese for ricotta. Anyway, I like when I'm in the kitchen, as you know, all bets are off. Like I am not a I love following rules. I love following rules. But in the kitchen, it's a do whatever the fuck I want creative space. So my disclaimer is that I glanced at her recipe and I kind of did my own thing. Like, I don't even follow my own recipes when I write them down and then go back to remake them. So like, I'm not going to follow somebody else's. And per usual, like I was incredibly liberal with the garlic because, well,
Garlic. Yeah.
and so if you need to fend off any vampires later, you're golden.
I might.
Okay, so then you're good to go. And you'll fit right in with your super dark black hair. So yeah, anyway, that's the disclaimer. I decided that I would try cottage cheese instead of ricotta, and it was really just an experiment. So yeah, I mean, I guess if we want to take a bite,
Yes, we do.
I would say this is I have a 2-part cheers for us.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, first, let me just admire how beautiful it is. It's
It's beautiful post the slopping it in the glass casserole dish to send it with you to your home because it was not set yet it was so piping hot when I took it out of the oven that it was not yet set and it kind of just it did its own thing.
I also just want to say that I had a deep appreciation for your sacrifice of driving with Spam in your car after having the lasagna in my car because my car smells amazing and I cannot imagine what havoc happened from the Spam. So
Mine did not. I think the only thing worse is when my children were little, and I hate to say this right before we eat something really good, but there was one time where we like forgot that we had bagged up a diaper on like a road trip and it was in there for a while. That might have been the only thing worse than the Spam. And on that note,
David,
2-part cheers. One to the cartoon legacy of Garfield, who is the lasagna eating creature, real or fictional, to ever grace this planet. And part 2 is to lasagna and its traditions and to never underestimating the power of homemade sauce and unapologetically excessive cheese.
Ruth, cheers. Thanks for making it.
Yeah. And you will not need to eat for the rest of the day after this because it's so heavy. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Ooh, that's good.
Mm-hmm. All right, I'll admit, like I was nervous about the cottage cheese, but I can't say I thought it was going to be like a texture thing. But that's not, I don't taste that. I do think it's missing like that authentic ricotta flavor. Like I do miss that, but if that wasn't something I was raised on, I don't know that I would know the difference. You know?
I think it's beautiful. Well done. Well done.
Yay, thank you. Do you have anything to tell me about lasagna?
Well, so I have a theory. And some people know this about me. You may actually know this about me already, but I have a theory about humanity and lasagna.
Are the layers?
Yeah.
Is this about layers?
Well, it's about layers, but it's really that some of us are really saucy. Some of us are really cheesy. Some of us have been left in the oven too long, but we're all still really delicious. And we do have layers and we're complicated and sometimes you put us on a plate and we just spread all over the place because we're too warm. But I think that eating lasagna has always been something that like really reminds me of this like life metaphor about being like the emotional equivalent of biting into what you think is perfect and warm and cheesy, but then sometimes like it's just a Stouffer's lasagna and it's still frozen in the middle. And that's like That's like our trauma. Like that's like, oh shoot, I didn't thaw this out long enough and I'm trying to like get around it. Um, yeah. So I don't know, something about lasagna being a comfort food and all the layers and all of the problems of humanity and being saucy and cheesy just kind of, I don't know, makes me feel like I'm eating.
So is that to say that some people are too soft noodles?
Some people are. Some people are just soft noodles.
Like,
Yeah.
dare we say limp noodles? Now, these are al dente. Just for the record, I did cook them al dente before I laid them in here. I kind of feel like there could be more noodles in this, actually. Like, I made it extra saucy.
It's so good. It's so good. I have no complaints. Pasta is a love language and kind of like tacos. It's like the thing that makes you feel good, right? Like you eat it because you want to feel cozy.
Yeah, whenever someone asks me, there's like that kind of absurd question, like, if you could only eat one type of food for the rest of your life, what would it be? For me, it would be Italian food because there's such a comfort to it that is a go-to for me. So, yeah. Well, now that our stomachs are happy,
Yes, let's talk about the ingredients of saying no.
yeah, I feel like I have so much to say about this. And I know I have a lot to say about everything, but like this in particular, I was, making some notes for today and I just like I could not stop. It was insane. Um and I think I'm going to start with saying that, like, kind of talking about what no is, because I feel like it's so many different things to so many people. And it's so situational too, right? So it's everything from saying, no, you are crossing my personal boundaries, or no, I'm not doing or saying that because it makes me infinitely uncomfortable, or it is saying, no, you are hurting me or someone that I love, whether that's physically or emotionally. And I underestimated, by the way, uh, the effects of eating lasagna before trying to talk about this. Pardon me. Who knew? Or it can be something as simple as like saying no to overcommitting and overcrowding your schedule to where you leave no time for yourself to breathe or rest or simply exist. And my therapist said something to me just last week, actually, which I loved. We were talking about this, and she said, sometimes you're saying no to someone or something else so that you can say yes to yourself. And I think that really sums it up. I suffice it to say, I think that saying no is such a superpower. I think it's a life skill. It should be taught right alongside tying shoes. But for some reason, society has made saying no really tricky, especially for women. Um, and there's this Ethel Barrymore quote that goes something like, "You grow up the day you have your first real laugh at yourself." And I totally agree with that, by the way. I mean, sarcasm and humor are everything. Um, but I think my addendum to that might be, you learn to adult the first time you learn to say no. And not just no, but maybe unapologetically no. No that isn't accompanied by feelings of guilt, and it can be something as like just not taking on the world in a weekend. Like, it's not our job to be everything for everyone. And as women, that is something that I think many, if not most of us, fall into a pattern of, because obviously we want to take care of those around us. We want to nurture, we want to um love and care for everyone. And it's really so difficult sometimes to remember that, like, we don't have to run the Girl Scout booth and host a sleepover and go to the work dinner and make the lasagna for the podcast. Not that I'm not that I know anything about this subject. Um, and like, I'm not a fan of canceling on people last minute, right? I try to reserve that for emergencies, like the kids are sick, or there's a schedule change with work that I can do nothing about. But I think part of adulting is like learning to do that unapologetically and getting to a point where you're like, you know what? I would love to accompany you to this media dinner, but I'm not going to because I need a night at home on the couch. And like, it's okay that that's what it is. It's okay that you're watching Yellow Jackets and not going to a dinner out because you don't like what you need for yourself to fulfill yourself is to not get dressed up and put heels on and makeup on and all the things. And you don't even necessarily have to do that anyway. But so anyway, I need to give you some space to talk because I have commandeered this conversation, but I have so much more to say about it.
Oh my God, I love that you do. And I mean, I feel like no is a boundary. It is a boundary for sure. And I think for me, I struggled with this for a really long time because I was afraid of disappointing people. I was afraid of not being liked. I was afraid that saying no would make me the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that as a people pleaser or a recovering people pleaser, you have to be okay with people misinterpreting your intentions first and foremost, because at the end of the day, you're the only one who's looking out for you. And everyone else is going to assume that you are doing that. And it's not even that they're taking advantage of you or just like abusing your time or anything. It's just that if you're saying yes, they're trusting that it's yes because you can and you want to and you're willing and you have the availability, and you have to be able to say no. You just have to. And not over explain. I think that's the biggest piece. Like I tended, especially at the beginning, learning to say no is like, well, here's like the 12 reasons why I have to tell you no. And let me justify this no to you instead of just letting it be like, sorry, I'm busy. And that's it. Like people don't really even care why. It's just, can you go? Yes or no? Or can I do this? Yes or no? And I think getting to that point, and it's only recently happened, if I'm being very honest, it's only been very recent that I'm not like giving someone the longest story ever as to why I can't come or feeling guilty about it after I've said no. But it's a really wonderful thing when you know that your heart is like preferring to go to bed at 8 p.m. rather than go out somewhere and sit with people that you don't know and you don't want to hang out with. It's a lot easier just to be like, oh, even if it's people you do know and you want to hang out with them, but your body's like, I'm tired. Just giving yourself that space.
Yeah, recognizing your needs in the middle of it. And it can be a decision between, like you said, going out with people that you know and love and staying at home because your body needs it. Those are two things that like it's hard to choose from between because you love those people. It's not that you don't want to be there. It's not that you're turning them down. It's that you're recognizing your needs in the middle of it. I thought it was interesting that you said you didn't want to be the bad guy. I also have struggled with this so very much. And it's very difficult to get yourself into a place where you realize that your own discomfort has to be put. It's not, you can't control other people's responses, obviously. You also can't control what their discomfort level is. Um or what their capacity of understanding is or appreciating the situation is or respecting you in the middle of your needs is. And I think a lot of the time we probably put more pressure on ourselves than they do, where, like you said, they may just need a simple yes or no. And for us, we feel the need to explain because we're worried that they're going to think that we don't want to be there. Uh, I not only struggle with that, I feel like it plagues me. And that's not to say I haven't done a great job in certain instances of saying no and remembering that I don't need to explain myself. But like recently, for example, I had a mandatory work offsite. It was our quarterly offsite. And I was sick. I was really sick. You and I talked during that time. You know how sick I was. I felt like crap. I sounded like crap. I needed to take care of my body. And it took some solid convincing from our management team and my boss to actually indulge that. And I am using the word indulge purposely here. I'm also using it somewhat tongue in cheek, because the reality is that even though I was so sick and I needed that for me, it felt like I was indulging myself to do that. Like somehow I was, you know, throwing back mojitos in Puerto Vallarta or something, like, rather than doing what I'm supposed to be doing for work. And the entire time that I was home from this offsite, I worked. Did I take a couple of naps? Yeah, because I had no choice, because my eyes legitimately would just not stay open. But I was so worried, like, God forbid somebody think I'm not being a solid teammate because I've, skipped this event. And or that I wasn't a team player. And interestingly, like, Marlo and I were in the car a few days later, and I was still coughing because, I still had like the remnants of being sick, but I was starting to feel a lot better. And I was taking her to school, and she said, Mommy, I am so glad you stayed home from work to take care of yourself. You're always doing, and she's 10, right? So like, you're always doing all these things for other people. And I'm glad to see you doing something for yourself. And I was like, yeah, they're always watching.
Yep. But it had to take you being sick to do something for yourself.
Right.
Also, we don't love that. But I relate. I mean, I've been with the flu crawling to my computer to do things at
Yes.
work, like blue lips and everything. Just like, I need to get this done. So, it feels like a luxury when you're sick, because you're like, oh, now I have an excuse to go and take a nap and to lay and rest and not do anything.
Yeah.
But saying no gives us permission to do that when we're not sick, when we can actually enjoy it and our body can get more out of it.
Well, and it's really setting a precedence for so many other things. I mean, if there's one thing that I want my daughters to know, it is that their no matters, whether that's taking care of their health, saying no to peer pressure, saying no to bullying, whether on behalf of themselves or their friends, or someone at school, to say no to uncomfortable situations, or no to things that just simply don't fucking feel right. I don't care what it is. And in these contexts, it's crucial for their safety and their well-being. I want them to know that no is a full sentence. Not no because, not no but, just no. Period. And now, do I love when they turn around and use it against me? Not really. Not No, I don't. Um but then again, I can't be a hypocrite, right? Like, if they're saying no because it's some sort of uncomfortable situation for them, I want them to feel empowered, and I want them to know that I am a safe space for that answer. Um, because learning to say no and standing up for themselves or someone else, and representing their convictions, is exceedingly important, particularly as a woman in this current social climate. Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's really something powerful as well about kind of modeling when they say no and respecting their no, even though they're minors right now. Like, I feel like if my no would have been respected as a child, I would have been in a totally different place as an adult. And I would have felt more empowered, and I wouldn't be had that timid stage of life where I was explaining away my no as much.
I mean, again, it's situationally dependent, right?
Sure.
Obviously, if I'm holding my child's hand and we're about to cross the street and they want to run across the street, and they say, and I'm saying I need to hold your hand because there's traffic, and they say no, too bad, so sad, you're holding my hand, because we're not going to do something that is going to put your health at risk or your safety at risk. Different story. What we're talking about here on a broader level is obviously before people come back and they're like, oh, you're the parent, you have to learn to say no to them. I totally say no to my kid.
Yes.
Make no bones about it. Like,
The no's are two-way street, though.
we've got rules in our house, and those rules are going to be followed. But but yes, but the point is giving them the room to say no when, like, for example, um I have a friend who, if a family member walks in the door and their child doesn't want to hug the family member and says, no, thank you, politely, she allows them to say that because to her, that is helping them respect their bodies. It doesn't matter if it's a friend, a family member, a stranger, if it's uncomfortable for you and you're not in a place where you feel like you want that touch, like that's not something that she wants to force them into. And I get that. And I think that's a really solid example. Um, it's interesting because as babies, like most kids go through that no stage, and neither of my kids really went through that. And I think I chalk that up to I made a conscious decision when Gray was little that instead of saying no to everything, I would say not for Gray. And so in her very precious little way, when she'd go to touch something that was like too hot, and I'd be like, not for Gray, she'd be like, not for Gray, and it was adorable. And I have great memories and probably videos of this occurring. But then I think back and I'm like, I did that because I was trying to purposely avoid the whole no, because that is just such a hard, harsh, abrasive thing to hear children say to their parents, right? But I'm like, did I miss a step? Was that their time to try no on for size about things that are sort of trivial in the whole scheme of life? And, when it's cute and funny and they're saying no to pureed bananas or going to bed, versus later in life when what they're potentially saying no to is so much more detrimental. And now, mind you, I ask, did I miss a step? But I also recognize that I have really done my best to make sure that my daughters both know that they have a voice, and that it is meant to be used for good. And so, I do think that they are really good about saying no, or letting somebody know when things are uncomfortable. Um, but I don't know. Maybe we need to take notes from toddlers. Like maybe we need to reclaim that no energy.
Definitely as adults, yes, we do. We do. I think a lot of us do say yes when we mean no.
Mm.
There's a whole Bluey episode about it. Do you guys watch Bluey?
We don't.
Aged out of it, but we found it even though the kids are too old, and we just love it. And there's a whole episode where the little sister, her name is Bingo, and she says yes because she wants everyone else to be happy, and she ends up not getting anything out of the day. Like she gives away the whole day. And then they realized, oh, Bingo didn't get a choice. Bingo's sad now because Bingo didn't get a choice. And so they had to like rewind and give her options again. And it was really sweet how they kind of corrected that as a cartoon family. But I think that there's really something important about teaching kids to, it's not really even no, it's just like be assertive with who they are and to do it respectfully, but also unapologetically.
Yeah, and there's a fine line, obviously. There was this weird trend not that long ago where all like the kids were like, "We want a yes day," and I was like, "What the hell is a yes day?"
I said no. I said no.
And something I said no to right there. They were like, "A yes day is when everything we ask for you say yes to," and I was like, "Yeah, that's not happening in this house, honey. That's a no. That's a big fat no. Like I don't play that game."
There's that whole movie, Jennifer Garner, I think, isn't it like the yes day? Like, no, thank you. No.
And there's no. So yeah, no can be magical. It really can be magical. Well, I feel like we could probably go on about this forever, but I do have like a final toast if you'll allow me.
Let's do it.
All right. I had to write it down.
Okay.
Otherwise I was gonna forget it. May your lasagna always be layered, your wine always be flowing, and your no always be respected.
Boom.